Steve and I are going to continue our NFL division ranking series. We are moving on to the NFC North, which I think is going to be a pretty competitive division this year, which ironically, I thought this was actually the easiest division to rank, even though I think it's going to be competitive. I think their positions are pretty clear cut. So let's get right into that. Let's get right into who we think is going to rule the NFC North. Starting out at the bottom, I actually had a hard time picking this team, but I think I came to a pretty good decision, and that is number 4, the Green Bay Packers. They went 8-9 this past season. Now, that was with Aaron Rodgers, not Jordan Love. Let's keep that in mind. They were 10th overall in the NFC, the 17th ranked offense and defense. So, around the middle of the pack there on both sides of the ball. And the big reason I have them at the bottom of this division is mostly Jordan Love. Jordan Love has had one career start and has thrown 21 passes in the National Football League. There was a lot of conversations on if you should bench Aaron Rodgers and throw Jordan Love in when you knew you weren't going to make the playoffs, when Aaron Rodgers was having such a bad downside, you knew he was leaving. Should you throw Jordan Love in to get some more reps and get acquainted with all that stuff? We don't know. That season's over now, but they clearly maybe didn't trust Jordan Love to do that or didn't like what they were seeing. I've heard a lot about player progression this offseason. I've heard nothing about Jordan Love really at all since Aaron Rodgers has left Green Bay. I don't think that's a good sign. I don't know if Green Bay is in love with Love. And they really didn't do anything, like I said, different this offseason. It's been very quiet. I think this team is super young. They have no wide receivers with more than 1 year experience right now. So there's going to be a lot of growing pains on both sides of the ball. I think the Packers are going to enter a regression period for the next few years where it's going to just be, you got to go through the motions until you start, building yourself back up, as all rebuilding teams do. I think they're hopeful. I mean, we just talked about the offense side of the ball. I think they're hopeful for their defense. I don't think they have a plan quite in place, but they think maybe they can be just good enough. I mean, like I said, 17th overall this last season in defense. So I think all those negative things put them at the bottom of this division.
Yeah, I remember when Aaron Rodgers took over the reins from Brett Favre, and Aaron Rodgers came into a much better situation than what Jordan Love is coming into with the Packers here, now taking the reins over from Rodgers. And the Packers brought him in to sit behind Rodgers and learn. But if you remember, there was multiple reports over the years that Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love weren't close. There wasn't that mentor-mentee relationship between Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love. So there was for Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. There was a very mentor-mentee relationship there. So, I agree with you. I think the Packers are super young. I don't have much faith in their team. It's a historic franchise to play for, but they just don't have the pieces they need. So I think they fit well at 4.
Moving on to number 3. Now, I had a hard time picking between 3 and 4, but I think I've made the right decision. And I got the Chicago Bears. Well, we got the Chicago Bears at number 3. 3-14, the worst record in the NFL this past season, the 28th ranked offense, and the 29th ranked defense. So, why would I put this team above the Green Bay Packers? Well, let me tell you something. First of all, for them to be anywhere near successful, just like a lot of other teams in the NFL, their quarterback needs to be absolutely tremendous. And Justin Fields had a pretty good end of the season last year, but he needs to be dynamic. He has been pretty strong running the ball. I think that will only get better. But where he really needs to improve for them to be really good is passing the ball. I like the duo of Chase Claypool and DJ Moore. When you have a lot of young guys, I've said multiple times on this show, I don't buy into youth a whole lot, but I do buy into if you have a lot of young guys in similar positions, that chemistry is contagious and spreads throughout the team. Now, their defense is and maybe was bad. The jury is still out on that, but it has gotten better. I like the addition of TJ Edwards, and they have also drafted 2 defensive players this past draft. I think that, like I said, I think they smell blood in the water and realize that this division, like I said, is going to be competitive, and they can make a lot of improvements this season. It's just all up to them. They control their own destiny at this point, so I like the Bears at number 3.
there's a guy that you didn't mention that I think is going to be a wonderful this year, Darnell Mooney. I think he's another good young receiver that the Bears have. And youth, like you and me have said, doesn't translate to the playoffs. So if the Bears had, one or two more veteran pieces, but 3 is a good spot for the Bears because I'm not big on their defense, but I think that Justin Fields is going to have a good year.
Yeah, this is a building year. Like I said, this is a year where if Justin Fields continues stepping in this direction and everyone else follows suit, I think they can improve tremendous. I mean, there's nowhere to go but up from 3 and 14. Like, you can only get better. So yeah, I think the Bears are good at number 3. Number 2, a team that and I think a lot of others really like this coming season, the Detroit Lions. I think Jared Goff is criminally underrated, especially this past season. No one gave him enough credit. But about the Lions themselves, they were 9-8, just missing a playoff spot this last year. They were 8th overall in the NFC, the 4th ranked offense in the NFL, but the worst ranked defense. They were 32. Dan Campbell's the man. Everybody loves Dan Campbell. I think the 2 coaches with the highest rising stocks are Dan Campbell and now I forget his name, the Giants coach. Gamble? Is that his? Yeah. No, Dable. Brian Dable.
Gable.
Gable. I was going to get there. I knew his name. Yeah, Brian Gable. Yeah, I think those guys have the highest rising stocks right now in the NFL. I think the Lions are going to make – I was trying to think if I wanted to say this or not. I think the Lions are going to make a playoff spot. Whether they win the division or not, I think the Lions are going to be in the playoffs this year. They have a young defense, though, that needs to get better. It needs to get better. Now, 5 of their 9 offseason moves were defensive moves. So they have greatly increased. They got some new linebackers, some new cornerbacks. So their defense is young and needs to improve, but that's going to be most important, kind of like the Bears. I think the start of the season is going to be a little rocky, but as it goes on and get their footing, they will be better. And like I said, I think they're a very sneaky playoff team. I think Jared Goff is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Now, I think he's between 8 and 10, but nonetheless, I think he's a top 10 quarterback, and I like the Lions at number 2.
It's so hard to predict what they're going to do because the offense is great. Now, they lost Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift this offseason, which I think DeAndre Swift was a large part of what they were able to do with extending him out of the backfield. Bringing in Jahmyr Gibbs, he's going to be good. He was their first-round draft pick as a running back. But I think losing DeAndre Swift is going to hurt a little bit. So I'm interested to see if the offense keeps pace with what they did last year with losing 2 really important pieces. But I like the Lions at 2. I think they're definitely better than, now that I look at it, I think they're definitely better than the Bears and the Packers. But there's a chance that they get 2 teams into the playoffs. That's a real dark horse for me. But the NFC, the bottom half was pretty wide open last season. So, they very well could.
With that being said, the obvious last team at number 1, the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota Vikings are going to be the same team they've been for the last 5 years. They're going to be just good enough to get in because they're going to win the division. I think they're obviously the best team in this division. Justin Jefferson is going to be amazing. Like he was Offensive Player of the Year last year. I think the most important part of their team is actually going to be, Steve, someone you're familiar with, Brian Flores as their defensive coordinator. They were the 31st ranked defense last year. So we just said the Lions were the worst. They were the second worst. I think Brian Flores comes in and does a lot with that defense. I think Brian Flores was the driving force behind the Dolphins' second half season comeback when he was there. I think he was the driving force behind that. So I think he'll have a major impact on that team. You can speak a lot more to Kirk Cousins than I can, but I think Kirk Cousins is going to keep doing Kirk Cousins things, just be good enough to be a starting quarterback and get them in the playoffs. But overall, I think they're going to be the same old Minnesota team, but in this division, that's good enough to make the playoffs. So I got them at number 1.
That's a very interesting point you just made, Cam, about Brian Flores, and it actually changes everything that I was going to say, and here's why. Brian Flores, before he came to the Dolphins, was with the Patriots, consistently had a top 15 defense under Brian Flores.
Hold on, stop.
Once their eyes open, they can get infections in them.
Mm-hmm.
You see. And then it's take a cotton ball with warm water and just swipe their eye out with that.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ever force their eyes open, it said. I would never do that. I don't know, maybe she's in town and will stop in here. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right.
All right.
Let you go.
All right.
Talk to you later.
All right.
Love you.
Love you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
When Brian Flores was with the Patriots, their defense was consistently top 15. When Brian Flores went to the Dolphins, their defense was terrible before Brian Flores. He comes in, and we had 2 seasons of a top 5 finishing defense. Now he's leaving and going to the Vikings, who I just told you the other night that the last 4 years, they haven't had a single defensive rating over 24. Kirk Cousins, we also have learned, has the highest QBR in wins and the 3rd highest QBR in NFL history in losses, which means that even in losses, Kirk Cousins is playing very well. Now, what could we attribute that to? The fact that they've never had a good defense when Kirk Cousins was there might be a factor in that. So bringing in a proven, who I believe to be a top 5 defensive coordinator in the NFL, I'm excited because Kirk Cousins, I think now he's going to have no excuse. So if what I believe Kirk Cousins to be is true, we'll see. But if he has a great defense and he still is terrible, well, I got nothing to help you. But Minnesota
it
Vikings,
is what it is. That pretty much sums up our NFC North. I think those are pretty good predictions. I think that's how it's going to go. So we got number 1, the Minnesota Vikings. Number 2, the Detroit Lions. Number 3, the Chicago Bears. And number 4, the Green Bay Packers.
It's really funny. It's really funny. If you would have told me that the Lions were going to finish 2nd in that division 4 years ago, I probably would have drove to Shamokin and punched you in the mouth. But the fact that they're going to be better than the Green Bay Packers, when have the Lions ever been better than the Green Bay Packers in your life?
Or the Bears. Or the Bears.
In your lifetime. Think about it.
The only thing different from what we have in last season is the Bears and Packers are flipped.
Yeah, that's true.
So that is our NFC North.
Listen to the sound. I listen to the sound.